Hello everyone, today I want to show you how to make this macrame bracelet where we have these kind of almost little daisies in the middle, just there, and then this kind of lacy flourish on the outside of every single section. So it looks like that, and then obviously we have a clasp, and I've just put a lobster claw clasp and extender chain on. You can use whatever clasp you want to, but then it'll sit like this on your wrist and give a really nice effect and also be very comfortable to wear. So if you want to learn how to make this bracelet, then stay tuned. So these are the materials that we'll need. Now first of all, we need to use a cord here. This cord that I'm using is a 0.4mm Eslon, and I'm just working with this really nice kind of teal blue colour. You can obviously choose whatever colour you want to, and you can also use other cords. You just have to make sure that obviously all the beads that you use will go onto the cord that you choose to use as well. And then we have a selection of beads here. So the first ones that I'm using are these 6mm rounds here, and I'm just using some 6mm round metal spacer beads in copper. This is what I thought would look nice. You can use whatever you want to, it doesn't have to be the metal spacer beads here, as long as it's 6mm rounds. The other ones that I've got here, they're also copper metal spacer beads. These are 3mm rounds. Again, you can substitute them for the ones that you would like to use. These ones here are also copper metal spacer beads. These are tiny little 2mm rounds. These you could easily substitute, say, with seed beads or something like that. It completely depends what you want for your bracelet. Now these ones here are SuperDuos. So these ones you can obviously use whatever colour you want to, but you will need to use SuperDuos to get the same pattern. This one that I'm using are just some pastel cream colour. I thought they would go really nicely with the copper and then that teal cord, so the colour scheme. The final beads that I have here are some 11O Miyuki seed beads, and I'm just using some black ones. So like I said, you can easily swap out the beads for the ones that you want to use as long as they're the same sizes as the ones that I mentioned here. Finally, we then need to finish off the bracelet. For that, I'm using some ribbon ends. These are 20mm in the width, so they're going to fit this perfectly. Then we have some findings, so lobster claw clasp, extender chain and jump rings. These are just the ones that I've chosen to use. I like these clasps, but you can use whatever you want to finish off yours as well. So let's get it all together and let's get started. So the lengths of cord that we'll need is 7 lengths of about 2.5 meters each of our S-long cord here. And then I've just taken kind of a scrap length of cord here, just a short length. I've attached it to my macrame board that I'm working on, because what we need to do is the lengths that we just cut off, the long lengths, we need to attach all those to this short length of cord here. So we then want to take one length of our cords here that we already cut at a time, and we need to attach one at a time here to this length. So what I do is I put the ends together of that one length, because we need to find where the middle is. So that's up here where I've got the loop. Keep hold of that. I want to use this loop now, and we need to use the lax head knot to attach onto this cord. So I'm going to take my loop here, bring it underneath the holding cord that's attached to my board, and then I take the loop back over the top of the cord on itself, and then I put my fingers through the loop and pull the ends of itself through the loop the whole way like that. So you have this kind of pretzel shape. Now we pull this tight, and then that is a lax head knot. What we also need to do though is add a half hitch on each side of the lax head knot here. So what you'll find is your cords will naturally be coming out to each their own side. I'm going to take one at a time. The one that's pointing towards the left side, I'm just going to stick on the left side. Take that, I bring it back over the top of the holding cord, and then back underneath like that, and then I want to make sure I bring it up in the loop of itself as well. So I'm coming back up through the loop here, and that's how we make the knot. Tighten that on the one side of the lax head knot. Do the same with the other side. Bring it over the top, back underneath and through the loop. So you get this, and then tighten that on the other side of the lax head knot, and now this length of cord is now fully attached to the holding cord at the top here, and we've now got this one long length of cord is turned into 2 working lengths. So you just want to do this with all your lengths of cord, and then we're going to end up having 14 lengths that we're going to be able to work with then. So now that I attached all my cords here, you can see this has kind of created our very first row of knots. So now what we need to do is make a little section, a few more rows here before we then start making the actual pattern and adding in any beads as well. Just to have a bit of spacing, also so we can finish off the bracelet at the end. So what I'm going to do, is I'm just going to start from my left side here, take the very furthest left card, I bring it over the top of all the rest of them, just like that, and then what we need to do now is create another row underneath this first one where we attach the cards. So I take the very next card in from that left side that's coming underneath the holding card, that's going to be this one, the holding card that goes over all the others. The first one here I've got in my left hand in this case, that's the working card. So what I want to do is make double half hitches to create this row all the way across. So I take the working card, bring it around my finger and back through the loop, so back underneath the holding card, and you get something that looks like this. So basically the working card is coming underneath the holding card, looping back over the top, back underneath again, making sure it comes up through the loop of itself, just like that. Then to tighten this, I want to make sure I hold the holding card in the right direction. So I'm going to actually pull it out towards, so it comes towards the same direction, making a row underneath, but just push it up a little bit above the first row there, and then tighten the knot that I just made. Want to do the same again, so around your finger and through the loop to make that double half hitch. When you tighten the knot, push the cord upwards a little bit, because that makes sure that the row we're making now is going to be right close underneath the first row there. So that's the first knot with your first cord, so we need to move on to the next one. Separate your cords out. Always make sure you grab the very next working cord that's coming underneath. I want to make another double half hitch with this one now. Do the same thing, round your finger and through the loop. So you get your kind of 6 here, looping around the holding cord in the same way. And then when we tighten that, remember to push the holding cord upwards a little bit to get them nice and tight together, the rows. And again, because we're making our double half hitches. So that's now the second one. So you want to keep doing this all the way to the end here, so you've used up all the working cords along the way. Now that I then kept going all the way to the other end here, you can see I've got my complete row underneath the first one. So now we technically have 2 rows here. So what I want to do is make a couple more rows to have just a few in total. How many rows you do is kind of completely up to you. There's no set amount that you have to do. But what I'm then going to show you is how to change direction to make the next row, and then you can go on and do however many rows you want to see how much spacing you want before you then start the actual pattern. So this was the holding cord that I used for the last row. This is going to be the holding cord again, so that means I'm just going to take it, bring it back over all the cords but in the opposite direction now, and then this is still the holding cord. The others that are coming out underneath are still the working cords, and basically we'll be doing the exact same thing, we're just using opposite hands. So before I had the holding cord in my right hand working this way, now I've got the holding cord in my left hand working the opposite direction. Otherwise we're doing the exact same thing. So I've got the holding cord over the others, I grab the very first working cord that's coming underneath, make a double half hitch with that, and you just tighten it all the way up and you start the very next row right underneath the previous one. Again, making sure that when you tighten your knots, you hold your holding cord really tight to the previous row and even a little bit further up than that beyond it. So that's the first one. Grab the next working cord around your finger and through the loop, tighten that nicely, nice and tight underneath the previous row. Once more for a double here, and that's your second double half hitch. So again, you just keep going like this all the way to the end till you build up your next row here, and then this is how you swap direction to keep building rows. You can make, like I said, however many you want to, and then once you're happy with how many you've got, how much spacing, I'm going to show you how we start off with the pattern. So I now completed this row as well, and I'm personally going to stop at this point because this is going to fit just perfectly inside my ribbon ends that I'm going to finish off the bracelet with. So now we reach the point where we need to kind of prepare all the cords to be able to then also start adding in the beads in the pattern that we want. So what I've done is you need to separate your cords in 2 with even amounts in each group here. So I just split them down the middle, so I've got 7 cords on each side. Now what I'm just going to do is start with one side at a time and just show you that because it's the same thing on both sides. So you can just separate them out and put all the ones that we're not starting out with here, just put them out to the side and get them out of the way while we're working with the other ones. So what I'm going to do is we need to make some rows of double half hitches here as well, or rather vertical lark's head knot is actually on here. But these rows are going to kind of be pointing downwards instead of long ways like this. So starting from the middle of the bracelet here, the very first one I'm going to just leave out to the side for now, and we're not going to use that just yet, but I want to prepare the other ones here. The next two from the inside here I'm going to use first, so you can just put the others out of the way while we're doing these. And then you've got a left and a right cord on this side. It's going to be all the same on the other side, like I said, obviously just all in reverse, so mirrored than this. The inner one of the two is going to be the holding cord, and the one further to the outside of the bracelet is going to be the first working cord. So what I want to do is take the working cord over the top of the holding cord, back underneath, and again through the loop here. So make sure you always go through that loop so that makes the knot and you get the 6. And then as I'm tightening this knot, I want to hold the holding cord downwards, because like I said, these rows are going to kind of be going downwards rather than to the side like the previous ones. That's the first half. Now to finish off the knot, I need to take the working cord underneath. Remember when we went over first time, now we're going under, back around and through. You get the 6 again. The only difference is the working cord is looping around the holding cord in a different direction. Tighten that while you're holding the holding cord downwards. So there we go, we now have a vertical lark's head knot there. And on this one we're just going to do the one. The next one here, I'm grabbing the next 2 cords from here. I'm just going to put these out of the way again. So, using the next 2 here, again the inner one furthest to the inside of the bracelet, that's the holding cord, and the one furthest to the outside is the working cord. So I want to do the same thing, make some vertical lark's head knots, but here we want to make some more. So I'm going to take my working cord over my holding cord, back underneath and through, till you get your 6 there. And while you're tightening it, hold your holding cord downwards. And then to finish off that knot, we go under, back around and through. And then tighten while you hold the holding cord downwards. So that's one knot. That's the same as what I just did on the first one there. But we want to do a few more, like I said. So in this case I want to do 3 on this holding cord. So I take the working cord over, back around and through. And tighten. And then we'll go under, back around and through. And tighten. And then that's the second knot. So to the third one, over, back around and through. And then under, back around and through to complete the knot. While again you're holding the holding cord downwards. Here you can see it more clearly. The row of knots is actually building to come downwards here. So that's the middle one out of the 3 rows of knots on this side. The last 2 cords on the outside, again we're doing the exact same thing, except we're making a few more knots with this. So again the one towards the inside of the bracelet is the holding cord, and the one furthest to the outside is then the working cord. Take the working cord over, back around and through, so you get your 6. Hold it downwards, and then take your working cord under, back around and through. Like that, and that's your first knot. So in this case, you keep making your vertical lark's head knots here, again building up this row. So the first row we made, we did 1 knot. The one that I just finished there, that's going to be the middle one on this side, I did 3. On this one out here, to get it to fit properly, because as you can maybe tell it's going to be going kind of downwards at an angle, on this one we then need to do 5. So this is the third one, building up that row of knots. So now we have the same amount as the previous one. Need to do another 2, like that, under. And just always remember to make 1 full vertical lark's head. We go over, back around and through, and then we go under, back around and through. You have to remember to switch direction about going over then under. So there we go. That's now the 5, just double check. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, yep. So that's how this side looks then. So if I bring them all in, you can see it more clearly. You can actually see from the midpoint there, we're graduating, it's coming down at an angle, and that's going to fit perfectly with how we're going to then go into the proper pattern. So basically what you want to do is then go to the other side, do the exact same thing, just mirrored. So from the inside, the very first one you leave out, just like we did on the other side. The next two, you make one vertical lax head knot, remembering it's the inside one that's the holding and the outside one that's the working cord. The next two, we make 3 of our vertical lax head knots. The inside is the holding cord, the outside one is the working cord. And the very outer two, we make the 5 just like we did over here. Again, the very outside one, regardless what side it's on, is always the working cord. So you just want to do that now. And then once you've done that, we reach the point where we can start getting into the proper pattern then. Now that I then made the other side as well, you can see both sides look the same. And we have this kind of angle going on because of these rows that were made. Now to make part of the actual proper pattern here, it's also going to be part of it throughout. What I'm going to do is take the 2 middle cords, so basically the 2 that we left out from each side, the very middle one, the very first ones from each side there, and I'm going to use these first of all to begin this square part or diamond part. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take my right one and cross that over the left one. And that means the one that crosses over, in my case the right one, is my holding cord. You can also cross them over the other way. I would then just recommend, do whatever comes natural to you. Just make sure that you do it throughout the bracelet so you don't change about which one goes over and which one goes under. I just naturally always take my right one over my left one. And then, like I said, the right one that crosses over is the holding cord, the one that comes underneath is the working cord. I'm going to do double half hitches now. So the one underneath the working cord, take it around my finger and through the loop. So, and in this case you kind of get a reverse 6 there. I'm going to tighten this all the way up, but then as I'm tightening the knot, what I want to do is the holding cord, because we're building this kind of diamond or square shape, it's going to go in the same direction here as the end of our rows. So the way you hold your holding cord is the way that your row is going to form. So I'm going to hold this cord in the direction that I want my row to go. So coming out at an angle like that, and then once more for a double, and again when I tighten this, hold it outward at an angle, so it's going to fit with the end of every row here going downwards. So then I've used that working cord, just put it out to the side for now. Just going to take one side at a time. We need to grab the very next cord, and what I can just do is separate all these out to get it out of the way, makes it a bit easier to see. The next cord that we need to grab is, if you look at your rows here that you made, the very first row that you did where you just got one vertical lax head knot, you need to use the first one you run into there, that's basically the holding cord out of that. And then do a double half hitch with that as well. Tighten that, and the knot will just tighten right after the previous one that you did. And like that. Put it out to the side. Grab the very next one that was the working cord from that same section there. So always just make sure that you grab the very next cord that you run into. You're kind of naturally going to figure out which ones they are so you don't cross them over. And like that. And you can see we're now building another row of knots here, but coming downwards at an angle and outwards as well. The next one we need to use is the holding cord from the middle section here on this side. As you can see there, the one with 3 knots around my finger and through the loop. Again, making a double half hitch with that. And just tightening, and keep holding your holding cord in the same direction. And the next one is the working cord from that same section. Always making a double half hitches here. And we've gotten to the last section now, the one where I had 5 vertical lax head knots. Grab the first one you run into, that's the holding cord from that section, make your double half hitch. Again, every time you use the cord as well, just put it out to the side so you get them out of the way until we need to use them again. And the last one that you haven't used yet, make a double half hitch with that as well to basically finish off this row, because then there's no more working cords to use. So there we go, that's the first row on that side. Now you can bring back all the working cords that you used from that side, put them back to this side that we've been working on, just to get them out of the way for now. Because now what we need to do is go over to the other side and do the same thing there. So that's what we need to use. That original cord out of the two middle ones that we hadn't used when we made our very first knot in this case, we need to use the other one from that now. So you might find that's probably the very first one out of this group that you just put to the side. It's coming right from the middle there, and then wanting to point in this direction. So there we go, grab that one. And again the same principle. Grab the very next cord. It's coming underneath. Again, remember the one that goes above the rest is the holding cord. And then we basically just want to do the exact same thing here. Build a row coming down at an angle. Replicating the other side. Always grabbing the very next cord. Taking one section at a time basically. And making your double half hitches. That's the first section. Grabbing the next cord is the one from the section there with 3 knots, the holding cord. And like that. Making your double half hitch. And just grab the one that was the working cord out of that same section. Making sure we don't grab the cord from the next section just yet. Like I said, try and make sure you don't cross over your cords and get them tangled up. And the last one's the holding cord from that very last section with 5 knots. Making a double half hitch in the same way. And the very last cord that we haven't used yet, to finish off this row on this side. So there we go. Now you can again separate out your cords. Kind of helps to try and keep them in groups as you're working with them as far as possible. It just helps being a lot more organized and not get them tangled up. So they're kind of naturally want to cross over each other like this, but just keep them to the side that you worked with them on, just so you can gradually take a bit at a time here. Because now what we need to do is go back to the middle again to build up this square, and you want to grab the 2 middle cords out of all of them. So that means one from each side, basically the 2 that are right there on each side of the corner right in the middle. That's the 2 you want to grab. And that's the same principle as the very first 2 we used up here. So I take the right one, goes over the left one, just like I did at the beginning. Like I said, just make sure you keep doing the same thing. Whether you do the left one over the right one, or the right one over the left one, it doesn't matter, just keep doing the same thing throughout. And then, I want to start a new row here. So I take the working cord comes underneath, I want to make my double half hitch, and then when I tighten this, it's going to go straight into that corner. Right there. Make a double half hitch. And there we go. And this is then the beginning of the next row that's going to lie right underneath the very first one we did on that side. And then to keep building that row, we need to then use the rest of the cords coming from that side, all those working cords that we used in the previous row there. And now it's a bit easier as well to take the right one because they're naturally separated now because of that previous row. So grab the very next cord that's coming underneath, just make sure it's the very next one. Do a double half hitch with that. Tighten that so it comes right after the previous knot there. That was right in the middle. Like that. Again, holding your holding cord in the direction that you want it to go. The row here, right underneath the previous row of knots that we made. The very next working cord comes underneath. Tighten that around your finger and through the loop, making our double half hitches. Again, just put my working cords out to the side every time I've used one to get them out of the way. Next cord. Working our way all the way outwards here to the side, using every single working cord, making our double half hitches. You can really see the row starting to build now underneath the previous one there, and get them as nice and tight as possible. The last working cord on this side, tighten that, once more for a double, and there we go. Now what you'll find you have left is you have the holding cord from the previous row that's going straight out to the side. We don't want to use this, so like I said, we only want to use the working cords from the previous row. we're not using the holding cords. So every time you finished a row, the holding cord, just put the holding cord out to the side so you don't get them mixed up and accidentally use that as well, because that's the whole point. That's how we're going to achieve the end down here of the row, is to then get that square effect. Because if you brought that into it, that would give a completely different look. So on the other side we need to do the same thing, but obviously just mirror it again. So go back to the very middle. The very first cord coming from the left side is the very first holding cord towards the right side here for the very next row. Again, I'm putting all the others out of the way, separating my cords so I know the very next one I need to take is the first one that comes underneath that I run into. And then do your double half hitch here. Again, this one goes right into the corner. And this is then building the next row underneath on this side, underneath that previous row here. Making your double half hitches, grabbing the next cord, working our way outwards, getting these rows nice and tight underneath each other as well. Next one, double half hitch, around your finger and through the loop. And the very last working cord on this side, same thing, around your finger and through the loop. And repeat for the double. And there we go. And remember, the one we have left that's pointing out to the side, that was the holding cord from the previous row. We're not using that. So that and the new holding cord in the row we just made, just put them out to the side to get them out of the way. And we can separate the cords back again. And you can see now the rows are starting to build up. So to start the next one, back at the beginning, means we need to go to the middle of all the cords again. So the very two middle ones, one from each side right there in the corner. Make sure you grab them. And again, I take my right one and cross that over my left one. So they cross from the right one, crosses over there. That means the one from the right side over is the holding cord, and I make my very first double half hitch for the next row here. And it's going to tighten right in the corner in there, just like previously. So there we go. Put it out to the side. Grab the very next cord. Around your finger and through the loop. It's going to tighten right after the previous knot. And then what you'll be able to see as well is for every row that we're making now, every row is basically getting shorter and shorter. We're getting one less cord to work with for each row because we're leaving out the previous holding cords, which also means that each row is going to then get gradually quicker because obviously there's less knots to do. All the way to the side. The last working cord here on this side. And there we go. And again, the holding cord goes out with the other two that we had already put to the side. We take them back to the side that we were working on to get them out of the way to be able to work on the other side here. To do that, again, grab the very first cord out of these that's coming from that left side. That's wanting to naturally go over towards the right. It's going to be the holding cord for this row. Grab the very first cord out of all the working cords coming underneath. Make your double half hitch to tighten right in that corner there in the middle. Grab the next one, and again we're just building up our row on this side the exact same way, just obviously mirrored from the other side that we just did. And again, you'll also be able to tell here that it's already getting much quicker to do each row now, because obviously they're getting shorter and shorter by leaving out those holding cords. The last one. Finish off this one around your finger and through the loop. and put the holding cord out to the side. And again, these are now all the working cords I used on that side. Put them out of the way except for the very inner one that's right in the corner, because again, to start the next few rows we need to do the same thing. Always go back to the middle, and like that, right there. The right one crosses over the left one, and then we start our next row. Just like that. Put it out of the way. And here now, I've only got 3 working cords left on this side to use. Making our double hair pictures for each one of them. And you can really kind of start to get that sense of the square shape that's going to form because of how we're then ending our rows as well, by not using the holding cords from the previous ones. And last double hair hitch here, and again the holding cord goes out to the side. The working cords come back around out of the way except for the very first one that's right in the corner. That's the holding cord for the other side, where I then also have 3 working cords. So that you come underneath, do your double half hitch right in that corner there. Grab the next one. Make sure they don't cross over. Double half hitch. You can see they're getting much shorter and shorter here. Much quicker to do. Put your holding cord out of the way. Your working cords go to the side except for the very middle 2 again. We're gradually here coming towards the point of the square or the diamond, however you look at it. That's what we're working towards. I take my right one, cross over the left one out of the 2 middle ones. Do your double half hitch. Like that. Put it to the side, over to the other side there. Grab the next one. Make a double half hitch with that working cord. Like that. And the very last one on this row, you can see it's getting really short now, every row. And much quicker. Because like I say, we're really getting towards that point, basically the last point of the square that we're doing. Or the last corner, however you want to call it. Take the first out of these working cords I used on that side. It's going to be the holding cord for the other side. Or we just have the 2 cords here, 2 working cords to use. Make a double half hitch with each of them. Just like that. The last one on this row. Finish off that one. Put the holding cord out of the way with the rest of them. Now we've not got that many cords left. Again, go back to the middle 2. The right one goes over the left one. So like that. Do a double half hitch with the one that comes underneath. With the working cord here. Just like that. Put it out to the side. And the last cord on this side for this row. Double half hitch, and then put the holding cord out of the way. The very first working cord that you used is the holding cord for the other side, and we only have 1 working cord there, so just do my 1 double half hitch here with that, and that's basically that row complete. And then again, when you've done that, put the holding cord out of the way. So now we only have the 2 cords left in the middle here. And that's basically just the 2 middle ones that we always cross over each other in the middle anyway. So just do the exact same thing. The right one goes over the left one. And then we just want to make a double half hitch the exact same way as if we're starting off a new set of rows. Tighten that right in the corner, around the finger and through the loop. And tighten that. And that's basically the very last row, which also finishes off the square or diamond with the very last corner there. So you can really see the shape that we have now. So what I just want to do to finish off the square before we add in the beads, just to give it a nice finish as well, is just make a little row on each side here to give it a nice edge down there as well, where all the cord's coming out from. So what I'm just going to do is start on one side. I'm going to take the furthest one to the outside of the piece, bring that over all the others. That's going to be the holding cord, and we're just doing one side at a time here, so you can put the others out of the way for now. And then you want to grab the very next one that's coming underneath there. That's the first working cord. And then basically we'll be doing double half hitches with, remember what I said, the holding cord, the direction you hold the holding cord in is the way the row is going to go. So I want to hold it like this and basically have this row that we're making now right underneath the end of all of the other ones to make this square. So I want to make a double half hitch with the first working cord there. And then as I'm tightening this, I'm holding the holding cord in this direction downward at an angle in towards the middle. Once more for a double. Like that. Grab the very next cord that's coming underneath. It's going to be the next working cord. Make a double half hitch with that. And again hold the holding cord kind of taut, not pull it too much, but just so it has a nice tension. And then tighten it. And again in this direction that we want this row to form now. So we're kind of caging in all these rows that we've made. The very next one, always grabbing the very next cord that's coming underneath. So you don't cross them over, try and make sure you're not crossing over the cords here, but you're grabbing the very next one. And the next one, working our way downwards here, in towards the middle, basically in towards the corner, this corner of the square or the diamond. Using one at a time, making our double half hitches. Almost there. Second to last working cord. Make a double half hitch. Like that. And the very last one here. Again, a double half hitch with that. Just finish off the row on this side here. And there we go. And just like the other times we made rows here, what we'll do on this one side, we also need to do on the other side. So exactly the same, just mirrored obviously, because we're working in the opposite direction. So you just take all the ones you used out of the way, and then you just go over to the other side, start out with the same thing, take the one that's furthest to the outside of the bracelet, bring that in across over the top of the rest of them, separate out your cords, so you grab the very next cord that's coming underneath, this one that's going to be a holding cord, so the first one coming underneath is the first working cord. Then you just start the row off in the exact same way, making a double half hitch, tighten that all the way up to that corner on the side, to start off the row, like that, grabbing the very next cord, and again taking one cord at a time, make sure you always grab the very next one, building this row, working your way downwards towards the middle. So basically the two ends of these rows are going to meet right in that corner, and the holding cords are going to be going towards each other. So you just keep building this row until you reach the middle. So I now finished off that row here on that side by using the very last working cord, and as you can see all the working cords on both sides are coming out towards basically the side of the piece, but the two holding cords, the one from each side that we made the rows with, are going in towards the middle and wanting to naturally cross over each other here. So this is what we have left now. We still have a little gap there right in that corner because we haven't connected the two rows together in this exact corner. So that's what I'm just going to do now. So again, these two holding cords that we were using are now going to be the cords we're going to use to connect the two sides. So that means, remember again, always grab the same side to bring over the other one. So I take my right one over my left one. That means the left one is coming underneath and it's going to be the first, it's going to be the working cord here for this knot. Make a double half hitch, and this is basically finishing off the row that we just made and also connecting the two sides, and then just creating this corner right here in the middle. So there we go. Now all the cords are coming out pointing towards the same side here in the same direction. So we've now completely finished this by just caging in all the rows and just giving it a nice little edge here. So at this point, this is now going to start looking at our beads as well. So I've now separated all my cords here into pairs just to make it a little bit easier to work with and also then add the beads. So what I'm going to do is just go through now how I'm going to add in the beads and also get ready to complete this section and then be able to continue with the whole rest of the bracelet. So first of all, I've got two pairs here, one on each side, the outer ones. Then I've got another pair on each side, the next one's in. So far we're not going to use them just yet. I'm just going to first of all add beads to the three middle pairs here. The very middle pair, the ones that are coming right from that corner, the very last knot that we made. Here I'm going to add on one of my 6mm beads, so in this case I'm just using that metal spacer bead in copper. So I'm going to add one of those on both cords and push that all the way up. And then on these two it's going to be the exact same thing. So what I'm going to do there is I have my two cords there, so the pair. First of all, what I'm going to do is add one SuperDuo onto them. So one cord goes through one hole and one cord through the other hole in the SuperDuo. So it sits like that. It's going to go all the way up and sit there. And then on the outer cord, so in this case on the left side is the one furthest out to the left. On that one I'm going to add one of my tiny little metal spacer beads, or the 2mm ones. It's going to just go all the way up below that SuperDuo, just on that one cord there. Then I'm going to add another SuperDuo. Again, one cord through each hole, like that. It's going to go all the way up underneath the previous beads. Again on the outer cord here, the same cord that I added the other tiny little bead on, the 2mm one, I'm also going to add another one there. So basically in between every SuperDuo we add one of these 2mm beads on the outer cord. And again, another SuperDuo on both cords there, one through each hole. And then another 2mm on the outer cord of these two ones, this pair. And the last one here is then another SuperDuo. So in total on this side I've got 4 SuperDuos, but separated by one 2mm metal spacer bead there in between each one, so 3 in total, on the outer cord of the two. And then what's going to happen, because we haven't put the spacer bead between the SuperDuos on the inside cord, when we do move on to then make more knots, it's going to get pushed together and sit like this, and it's going to fit just perfectly around that 6mm bead just there. And that's why we add that 2mm spacer bead on the outside cord in between the SuperDuos. So that's what we do, and what we want to do is the exact same thing on the other side. So I've already added them here. You just push them all the way up. So you can see here it's the exact same on both sides. On the right side you just obviously want to add your metal spacer beads, if that's what you're using, your 2mm beads on the outside cord as well. So on the right side it's the right cord, on the left side it's the left cord out of the pairs. So that's the first few beads that we want to add. It's going to sit like this. And then now what I want to do is move on to the next pairs here. So the next two pairs, one on each side. So just the next one's out. I'm just going to start with one side at a time, but we'll be doing the same thing on both sides, just mirrored obviously. So I've got these two cords here, right after the section with the SuperDuos. What I then want to do is the one to the outside, so on the left side here is the left cord, that's going to be the working cord. The one on the right side, in this case, is going to be the holding cord. So the one towards the inside of the bracelet, that's the holding cord. And what I want to do now is a section of knots, because I want to kind of break up, not just have beads in here, I want to also add in some knots. So what I'm going to do is, the holding cord is in one hand, I want to take my working cord, go over the holding cord, back underneath, and through the loop. So it looks like this. So you got your working cord looping around the holding cord here. First it's going over, and then coming back around and underneath, and then up through the loop. Remember to always go up through the loop. So you have this kind of 6, and then I want to tighten this all the way up so it won't go any further. So right below that row of knots we've got going the opposite direction. Now to complete this knot, I want to take my working cord underneath the holding cord, back around and over it, and then through the loop. And then we have a 6, but the working cord is just looping around the holding cord in the opposite direction. It looks like that. Again, tighten that all the way up, and that is your first completed knot here. And this is basically a vertical lark's head knot, so the same ones that we made up here. And what we basically want to do here is a section of them to create a row, kind of coming downwards again. And we need to have enough knots to come down to the bottom of the beads to then be ready to do the next section as well. So just make a few knots here, reaching all the way down to the bottom of the beads. So I now completed the row of knots here on this side. As you can see, it's coming downwards here, and it's going to sit just nicely around the beads. Obviously you want to make enough knots so it sits when the beads are pushed tight like that. I've ended up with 13 knots here. So just like that, making my vertical lax head knots. It's going to end up proper meeting up with the row we're going to then be making once we've finished all this section. So once you've done that, what we need to do is do the exact same thing on the other side. It's obviously just mirrored. So we're going to be using opposite hands. So you're grabbing the two on the other side, the equivalent ones to that we just used. And then again, it's the inside one. Same as that side, the inside one is the holding cord and the outside one is the working cord. So we're just using opposite hands. So I take my outside one, the right one in this case, over the working cord, goes over the holding cord, back around, underneath and through. So on this side we get a reverse 6 like that. Again, looping around the holding cord and tighten that all the way up. And to finish off that knot, we take the working cord underneath, back around and through. So again, you get your reverse 6, just looping around the opposite direction, and then tighten that. And as you're tightening your knots as well, same on the other side, just make sure you hold your holding cords pretty taut. You don't want to obviously pull hard on it, but just hold it taut so it's stretched out while you're tightening your knot to get it nice and neat. And then again, working cord goes over, back around and through, and always remember to get it through the loop there. Tighten that, and then it goes under, back around and through. And then we're building up another row on this side, also working our way downwards. So you want to do the same amount of knots on this side as you did on the other side. And then once you've done that, we've got the outer sections to do. Once you then have both your rows of knots here ready, one on each side, we now need to move to the outside sections. And again, it's the same thing on both sides. I'm going to start with one of them. The first thing we need to do is make a knot here. So we're going to do the same knot as on here. So the vertical lax head knot. Again, the outer one is the working cord, so that goes over, back around and through. Like that. So you get your 6. Tighten that all the way up. And then go under, back around and through. And tighten that. So we have a single vertical lax head knot here. So that's just what we want now. And now what we need to do is start adding in some beads to this section as well. And the first bead I want to add is the one actually on the holding cord, so the inside of the two, towards the inside of the bracelet there. I want to add one of my 3mm metal spacer beads, or the 3mm beads, whatever you're using. Add that all the way up just below the knot there. Then I also want to add some beads onto the outside one here. So then on the outside one here, this is where I want to use my seed beads. So this is where I'm using my 11 no seed beads, and I've added 4 of them onto the outside cord. So the very outside one, the working cord in this outside section. And then we want to basically cage in all these beads with making another knot. So the same knot, the vertical lax head knot. So that means all my beads are pushed all the way up, make sure of that. Then I take my working cord over, back around and through. My holding cord to the exact same knot, and then I tighten this all the way up underneath the 3mm bead, and then my seed beads there sat right around the outside, decorating the outside of that bead as well. To finish off this knot and tighten it in place, I take my working cord under, back around and through, just like that, and tighten it all the way up. And that's going to then proper tighten the knot and all the beads in place there. So that's how I'm going to decorate the very outside. So you want to do a few of these as well to reach all the way down to the appropriate place again, just like we did with all the previous rows, for when we make our next row of knots here underneath all this. So we want to do the same on both sides here. The exact same thing as adding in your 3mm beads first, and then decorating that with your seed beads, and then caging it in with your knots in between. So I've now done both sides of this section as well. You can see you get this kind of little decoration on the edge with the little seed beads. Remember, on this side it's exactly the same, you just swap hands. And what I've ended up with is 5 of my spacer beads, the 3mm, where you have your seed beads on the outside. There's 5 of those in total on each side as well, so that's going to fit nicely. So now what we need to do is start connecting all these rows together, and then basically completing off this section so we can continue with the rest of the bracelet as well. So to do that, I've just again separated all my cords out, just kept them in the pairs that they're in, that we've used them in anyway. It just makes it a little bit easier to keep track of. So where I want to start is actually in the middle here, because we're going to start from the middle and work our way outward on each side. So you want to make sure you push that 6mm bead in the middle all the way up, so I won't go any further. Then we need to make a double hair hitch. We need to go back to making double hair hitches now. We basically need to make this section, so that little square again, to seal this whole thing in place and get ready for the next section of beads again. So what I'm going to do is cross them over. So I cross my right one over my left one. So that means the right one that's crossing over, the one that's coming from the right, is my holding cord. And then the other one in my right hand is my working cord. So I take the one that's coming underneath, bring it over, back around and through, and pull it all the way. And then I keep my holding cord here, the one in my left hand, taut while I'm then pulling this down right to the bottom of the bead, just like that. So that's the first half of the double hair hitch. I want to do the exact same thing again, so around my finger and through the loop, and pull it all the way through, so you get kind of a reverse 6 again there, and then all the way up, tighten it there. What you want to make sure when you tighten this is that you're kind of holding your cords like this in that angle, because we want the two cords to be coming down at an angle, so not a straight line down or to the side. We want basically the top of this square that we did up here now. So the holding cord dictates what direction your row of knots is going to go. That means I want to have it come so it's going to sit right below the end of all these rows that we've done. So I now take my working cord and put it out to the side, to the side that it's going to naturally. And I'm going to keep working with this holding cord. We now need to move on to the next sections. So grab the next one first, that's the one with the SuperDuos. You want to grab the first of the two cords, the one furthest to the inside. That goes underneath the holding cord, like that. And then I want to make a double hair hitch with that. So I take it around my finger and through the loop. And then we tighten this again all the way up as far as it'll go. Basically right after the previous knot that we just made. Make sure that the SuperDuos are going to sit just right. You don't want to see any thread in between the SuperDuos. Make another half hitch to make a double half hitch to secure the first one in place there, like that. Building on our row. So again, when you've used one cord, working cord, and made a double half hitch, just put it out to the side, out of the way. Grab the very next one, this is from the same section, make a double half hitch with that. So the other one that's coming from the outer hole in the SuperDuo, tighten that all the way up. There we go. And now we've used that section there, so that row. Now we need to move on to the next one. That's the one where we just use cord to make knots with. So you just want to make sure it sits right. It comes all the way around, just like that. Bring the first one, that's actually the holding cord from that row there. Bring that underneath the holding cord in the current row that we're working on. Make a double half hitch. And tighten that all the way around. Once more for a double. And it's kind of still moving a bit all over the place because it's still a bit loose, so that's what we're doing now, we're connecting all the rows. But once we got this in place, it's going to be a lot easier to work with. Take the one that was the working cord from that same section, make a double half hitch, just like that. So that was that section there. Now we have the last one, that's the very outer one. Again, grab the very first one that you run into. Again, that was the holding cord for this section. Bring that underneath and make a double half hitch and tighten that all the way up below the previous knot, just like that. And the very last cord that we haven't used yet, make a double half hitch with that as well. That's your very last working cord for this row. And then you'll see we've built a whole row of knots here underneath this beaded section that we've done. And we've now connected all those sections together as well. So now once we've done that, what we can do is grab all the cords that we use for working cords, bring them back over to the side that we're working on, because what we just want to do before moving on here, we need to do the exact same thing on the other side as well. So that means I'm just going to push my SuperDuos all the way up so they sit just ready for when I'm going to make my knots. Now what we need to do is take the very first cord that's coming out from the row that we just made, so the one that's really very closest to the bead, that's now going to be the holding cord for the row on the other side here. And basically you just want to do the exact same thing. That comes over all the others, and then you grab just one cord at a time here. The very first one you run into, which is the first one that's going through the SuperDuos further to the inside of the bracelet. And just make your first knot here. Tighten it all the way up. You might just have to maneuver your beads in place a little bit. Once more to make a double half hitch, because we're making double half hitches now for every knot that we're doing. Grab the next one, that's the other one that's coming through the SuperDuos, so the outer one of the two, and also make a double half hitch. And then we fasten the SuperDuos sections in place, like that. Now move on to the next section, that is the one with just the cord, making the knots there. Grab the very first one, that's the holding cord. Make a double half hitch. So you can see we're just repeating the exact same thing as we did on the other side. And the next one out of that section is the outer one, the one that was the working cord for that section here. And the very last section with the outer beads there with the kind of fringe on the side. Grab the first one that was the holding cord, bring it underneath and do a double half hitch with that. So there we go. And the very last cord that we've got left, bring it underneath and do your last double half hitch for this row here. And there we go, now that row is complete as well. So now you can see you've got your two rows here going out in directions from the middle at an angle, just like that. And then once we get it properly in place, as we keep making some more rows, then it's going to sit really nicely and come together just right. And the rows are going to obviously be sitting in place because we've kind of caged in the rows and fastened them in place now with these rows here. So what we need to do now is keep building on this section here, and basically what you want to do is repeat the step that I showed you up here. So you're just doing the exact same little square or diamond, however you want to look at it. So that means you go right to the inside of the piece, the very middle of the piece here, the two inside cords, one from each side that naturally want to cross over each other. Again, always make sure you take the same one over and the same one under. So I always take my right one over my left one. Do the same thing. And then make your double half hitch with the one that's coming underneath, that's the working cord. Tighten that knot all the way down in that corner right there. And there we go. And then just keep going like this. You can just put the others out of the way. Grab the very next cord on this side, make it come underneath and do a double half hitch. So you're now building a second row on this side here underneath the very first one that we did to connect all the rows together with the beads. So there we go. So as you can see, this is the same principle as up here, and then every time we make a row we leave out the holding cord from the previous row, so every row is going to get shorter and shorter and be quicker and quicker, and that's why we're going to get this diamond shape or square shape. And you want to finish off with the row going in the opposite direction just to finish off the rows nicely. So we're basically repeating everything that I've showed you here. The diamond and the bead section we're just repeating over and over again until you then reach the length that you need. So do that for however long you need to, and then I'll show you the next step. So I now kept making section after section here until I reached the full length that I want this bracelet to be. You can obviously make it however long you want to. Now the point that we got to is we made the very last diamond or square down here, the exact same way as the other ones. But what we need to do now is finish off the bracelet in this end, and also obviously get rid of the excess cords that we have. Now what we want is for this end to be pretty much exactly the same as this one up here. So we need to replicate everything that we've done, just in the opposite order. So we need to make those sections of rows of knots here coming from the last diamond or square down to that little end piece, just like we did before. And the rows that are coming down in the opposite direction here. So to do that, we do exactly the same thing as the other end. We want to separate our cords out. So the two in the middle here we don't use just yet. What we want to do is work our way using two cords at a time. I'm just going to show you here. We take the two, not right in the middle, but the next one's out, So we got the two very ones in the middle, one from each side. The next two, because you can see that's a shorter distance, this is where we need to do just the one vertical lax head knot. And this is, I'm taking the very outside one of the two, going over, back around and through, and tighten, and then going under, back around and through, and tighten that. So that's the first one done. So we move on to the next two, and this one, because obviously there's a bit of a further distance there, that's where we then need 3 to cover that length. So again, I take the outside one, that's the working cord, the inside one of the two is the holding one, and then over, around and through, and tighten, and under, around and through, and tighten, and that's the beginning of the next one. So in this one you make the 3 knots to make that row, the outside one you make 5, and then you do exactly the same on the other side, so 1, 3 and 5. And then once we've got them in place, we can then make that last little section of our rows of knots. So now that I then have these rows in place, like I said, the outside ones have 5, 1 on each side, then the next one has 3, and the 2 inside ones have 1 each. And then you have your 2 cords in the middle there, that's the very corner of the diamond or the square. So now what we need to do is kind of connect all these by making those bottom rows that we also had on the other end. So what I'm going to do is just start from one side, it doesn't matter what side you start from. I'm going to take the very outside one, I'm just going to take my left one, bring it over all the others, and then we need to start making a row of knots the exact same way as the other end. So this one comes over the others because it's a holding cord, and the next one that comes underneath, that's from the same row of knots there. We're going to make a double half hitch with that, and then when we tighten this, we want to make sure we hold the holding cord in the direction straight across here, so that's where the row is going to go. Once more for a double. So there we go. We've used that one, so both cords out of that little section, that row. I'm going to go on to the next section, which has got the 3 knots. I'm just going to take the working cord from that, go all the way across, make a double half hitch with this one. So we're now connecting these 2 sections. Take the holding cord from that same section. So just always take the very next cord that you run into, working cord that's coming out underneath the holding cord here, and this connects all the sections together and also makes a nice finish here. It's a bit easier to then work with to finish off with the ribbon ends that we're going to use the next one. And then like I said, just go all the way across. I'm getting close to the middle, and you just equally take the middle cords in the exact same way. So the very next one you run into, make a double half hitch. So we make this nice straight line, straight row across to the other side. So keep going, and then like I showed you in the beginning, I also showed you how to change direction. So when you get to the other end, all you want to do is change direction and make another row right underneath the one we're making now. And then you want to make, I recommend making the same amount of rows that we have in the beginning, just so they're equal. But you can make however many rows you want to, obviously. So make your rows underneath each other, and we're going to have a nice finish on this end as well. So I now finished this end here then, finished off my rows, and now what we're going to do is, pretty much all that's left to do is get rid of all the excess cords on both ends, and then also finish off the ends. So to get rid of the cords, what I'm going to do is cut them down first of all. So I'm going to get a pair of scissors out. Because I'm using a synthetic cord, I'm going to singe it down. If you're using a natural cord and it's not synthetic so you can't singe it, then you could always use glue and just glue the ends and then cut them off. But what I'm going to do is cut them down so there's like a millimeter or so left, right from where they're coming out. So there we go. And then once you have that, it's going to do this one as well. Once we have those little ends then, I'm then going to get a lighter out. Now this is obviously a naked flame, so you want to be careful that it does get hot. But then what I'm going to do is use my lighter to singe down the ends. So first of all, it gets rid of the cords in a nice and neat way without adding anything extra bulk or anything like making some knots. But it also seals them in place. So the last few knots here, the last row of knots, for example, won't come undone because singeing those ends in place seals it all nicely in place. So get rid of the cords like that, and also the ones on the other end. And then we need to use our ribbon ends to then be able to finish it off completely. So what I'm also going to do is use some glue for this. I like to just add the extra security within the ribbon ends, just so it's going to last as long as possible. So this is the E6000 that I like to use for this. It dries clear, so if a little bit seeps out it's not too crucial, but also it's really strong. So I use my glue, and I just use a toothpick normally to apply it with. I grab some of the glue. It doesn't have to be too much. We only just need to cover the inside of the ribbon end a little bit. And I just put it inside here, and you just want to get it up and down the sides of the ribbon end and all the way down to the bottom. And you want to also try and make sure you don't put too much, because it's just going to come spilling out anyway, and we're going to clamp this down onto the end of the bracelet. So there's no point in putting too much on there or inside there. So put your glue in there, and then I also just like to put kind of the excess right at the end of my bracelet. It's just so the two pieces adhere really nicely together when I'm then going to put the end here inside of it. So just a little bit like this, nothing major. So what I'm going to do is then take my ribbon end, place the end of my bracelet here inside the ribbon end. You can see it fits perfectly. And then we need to clamp this down. So I'm going to grab a pair of flat nose or chain nose pliers. And then I like to hold my piece in my hand and then put two fingers, one on each end of the ribbon end to kind of hold it in place, because we need to clamp it down. But what I would recommend is you don't go in one place and squeeze it tight, because it might move in the process and then you can't really do anything about it. You'll have to force it open. That's why I like to hold it like this, and then I start from one side and just do a little squeezing at a time and go back and forth just gently. And then when I feel like I'm almost there, before I then do a final tight squeeze all over, I just want to double check that it still sits straight on, so when you're looking at it, it's not kind of slipped more towards one side. So when you're happy that it still sits nicely, then I'm going to go in and do one final squeeze all over and give it a nice even pressure here. You want to clamp this quite tight, because obviously you want it to last. The glue helps with that, but also it has little teeth on the ends that dig into the piece to make it nice and durable. I just like to clamp down the ends as well, just so they're not too open. But there we go. I've now attached that, and obviously just let the glue dry a bit. Do the same thing on the other end, and then you have these little loops on the ribbon ends that you can attach your jump rings and findings to. So finish that, attach your findings, and then your bracelet will be done. So there we go. When you then finished off both ends here and attached your clasp and extended chain, if that's what you're using, of course, you can use whatever clasp you want to, but then your bracelet will be done, and it looks a little something like this. So you get this really nice effect of these kind of little daisies in the middle, and then this kind of lacy flourish on the outside, I think. And it'll sit really nicely on your wrist and be really comfortable as well, because it's nice and flat. So there we go, it looks like that. So I really hope that you enjoyed this tutorial and you found it useful, and it might give you some other ideas as well. But then, thank you very much for watching. Hello there everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to make this beaded diamonds macrame bracelet, and this is what mine looks like. So you can see you have multiple rows there of your diamonds with your beads in between, and then this is one version of the bracelet that I've already done that looks like this. So this is more simple in a way. You got one row of diamonds here with beads on, but here we've got the multiple rows. So the link for this one, for the tutorial for this bracelet, will already be in the description box below the video.